Guys, welcome back to my workbench. Dan here as always, and in today's video we're going to be doing a project review for the end of the month of May, and again this year is just going by so fast, but I'm super excited for this update. I've gotten a lot of projects done. I'm moving into the summer months here, so I've been working on building my Sulfur train a little bit more. I've been doing some covered hoppers to sell off. I've been working on engines again too, which is always exciting. I know you guys have been dying to see some locomotives, so I have some finished engines I'm going to show you guys here in this video, and I've got some really good progress on the model road, so I'm going to go ahead and compress all this together in this video to go ahead and end May off here. But it's a lot of stuff, so let's go ahead and jump into this. So to kick you guys off, I want to get you caught up on really where I'm going to be starting on with some new projects. I actually want to bring these guys in here real quick. Since I'm working on the Sulfur train right now, I've actually pulled out a number of cars and decided to let go of some. But I've also found some older ones that I decided to keep because maybe there's some rare paint schemes or the weathering wasn't that bad. So they're fixable cars, so to speak. So I actually pulled these out of storage and was about to sell them, and once I gave them a better look I decided, nah, let's go ahead and keep these. But I'm going to go ahead and prep these for new weathering, but these are originally ones that I got back in I think 2016, and these cars, not the best weathering. A lot of the rust is really chunky. There was a lot to be desired, let's just put it that way. You can see this bright blue bearing caps on the trucks, which is not realistic. Most of these cars don't have those. Plus, this paint scheme is a lot older now, so these cars are pretty rusted up. So I'm going to be re-weathering these guys, and you can see I've already started doing some stencil modifications and things like that in preparation for weathering. You can see I did some black streaking on the sides. I added the little molten sulfur stencil covers. They're all ripped up on the side, and that's pretty much on both sides. You can see I've already prepared the that little feature. I re-added a new hazmat contact info decal there, and I patched over the old one just to give me some variation. And then on this one you can see I kept the original but just faded it down and streaked over it to make it look like it's very, very weathered in. And again, I did the hazmat data covers. I'll probably add some other decals to this, and then I'll weather both of these at the same time, and then these will hopefully be just as good as my more modern cars. And speaking of modern Sulfur cars, I got quite a few to go ahead and show you guys here. These have been sitting in storage for about a year, but these are both HLCX molten sulfur tank cars. This is the standard 16,000 gallon funnel flow tank car. These are the Walthers guys here. And out of the box, these are pretty good models. I re-stenciled these for molten sulfur service, as you can see. I renumbered both of them with custom decals done by Circus City Graphics. He was able to make me a decal sheet of the HLCX yellow font. And I added all the molten sulfur data, the molten sulfur stenciling, added the 2448 hazmat code. I added underbody detailing and piping. As you can see, very basic piping, but you got the air line there, detailed out the trucks a little bit. Got air hoses, uncoupling levers, all those nice little details that you'd normally find on maybe a higher detailed car. If we zoom in here, you guys can see the weathering. The signature thing with some of these older HLCX Sulfur cars is the way they fade. It's a very interesting bright gray black fade, as you can see. And I just basically airbrush faded the entire car with several layers of gray paint, same with the one in the back here. And then I applied the new decals where I needed them, and then I reapplied HLCX decals so that they looked relatively fresh, did the safety striping and everything like that. On this one you got a little bit of rust starting at the top. You can see it's streaked up a little bit. You got the molten sulfur splatter. I changed the hatches on both these cars to be the smaller style hatch. Originally these had a taller hatch, so I went ahead and removed that. In terms of weathering, they do have the nice detailed weathering, but it's still relatively light compared to what I would normally do going into detail with the tank cars. But it's effective in what it needs to be to represent these accurately, at least. You can see I got the coupler lift bars on the ends, added the KD shelf couplers, and then there's this side of this one. I really like the top there with all that rust, and then you got the settled molten sulfur spillage. The opposite one is, again, a different number, but it's custom numbered. This one has a little bit of data patching, where they redid the data. relocated some stuff. You can see it's got a lot of little specks and little dots and things like that, but otherwise it's weathered the same way. It's got some grease splatter on the bottom. Again, end detailing, air hoses added, couple of lift bars, added the brake chain, brand new Katie brake wheel, all the nice detailing on the ends, new decals where I needed them. And then on the opposite side here, again, some subtle variation in the repatched areas. Relatively fresh. They re-stenciled some certain areas there and then redid the car data as well. So these are appropriate for the modern era. And again, on these molten sulfur trains, in particular the one I'm trying to model, you see a lot of these cars. So I wanted to try to at least get 2 or 3 done, and so far I've gotten these 2 completed. But if I can find another modern HLCX Walthers car similar to this paint scheme, I'll try to snag that one up, and I'll try to do the same kind of weathering. So I just recently got a 6-pack of these cars done here. Again, these are all Walthers Proto 14,000 gallon tank cars. I actually found a bunch of these on eBay recently, relatively cheap, maybe like $15 to $20 a car. And I went ahead and snagged a few of these roads up. So they're all TILX, GATX, or PPRX cars. Those are going to be the most common road names in my train, just because those are the road names I generally see on the real sulfur train that comes through locally here. So anyways, the first one I did was a GATX patch job. I got a TILX car with the repainted band, a PPRX standard unit, PPRX with the repainted band, another TILX, 2 TILXs in the back there. This GATX car is relatively interesting. It's a repainted car, and it has this interesting style stencil font, and I really didn't see too many of these originally, but up till recently I started seeing GATX patched out cars like this with a similar style font, and I wanted to go ahead and make some. So I got an older car and I re-decaled it with custom decals. I did all my stencil modifications. You can see everything's really nicely weathered in. It's got the standard bit of grime where I do my airbrush grime fade. It's got the sulfur splattage around the hatch there. It's got all the grime and rust around the hatch as well. Very common effect. Of course, I renumbered the ends too. And then on this side, pretty much the same thing. You can see there's some subtle repaint areas, but it's very, very subtle. Like I said, you have to really look closely. There's the nice patchwork there. Again, added the new safety striping, and then you can see the really cool redone areas of data mixed with the old on the side of the car. I thought that was really cool. These 2 TILX units, these are really cool. These have some interesting weathering where I tried to do some rust streaking on the side of the car. I did a heavy grime fade first on both of these, then I did the subtle streaking. So you can see as you look at the side of the tank body, there's actually fine streaking running down the side of the car, which I think is really cool. Custom numbers on this one. The streaking, safety striping is added. You can see the old data, areas where they repainted and repatched areas relatively quickly. You can see how they did all that. On the opposite side, pretty much the same thing. If I carefully turn it around, you can see all the different bits of patchwork there. Just subtle little things like this are really what make these cars look cool, and it's super common to see these patch repairs done in these kinds of cars. So I really wanted to have a number of units like these where they have these different effects, you know, like the stencil repainting, re-stenciled things where they replace data, repainted areas where they touch up or do repairs on the sides. Those are all very key features of modeling these tank cars. Same thing for this one in the back. Again, a custom numbered one. It's got the really cool patch repairs, new safety striping. This one's got the really neat repainted data, re-stenciled data there. That's all based on prototype photos of a similar car. And on the opposite side, again, you have pretty much the same thing, but it varies between the different sides there. You can see I never try to duplicate patchwork. I always try to make it look different on both sides. This next TILX car is really cool. This has the repainted band. A lot of times this is another feature you see on these cars, and I've modeled actually a number of these sulfur cars with this repainted band. And sometimes they do a full repaint on the top of the car. Sometimes you just see these kinds of effects where they just basically touch up small areas only. And again, it's something that's really, really cool. It's super unique, and you see it on occasion, and it's really important to model if you want to have accurate looking molten sulfur cars. You can see again, custom number. This one's later production car. It's got nice new safety striping. It's got some different kind of stenciling there at the ends, some repainted areas. It's got a lot of splatter, sulfur spillage at the top, and then on the opposite side there again, the difference in the patchwork, repainted band, all the nice new numbering. Same thing on the ends. The numbers have been changed on the ends as well, and there you can see all that nice weathering on the underbody. These next three cars are all ConocoPhillips PPRX reporting mark cars, and again, these are the exact cars that I'm trying to model because these are the majority of the trains that actually come in. They're almost always mostly PPRX cars mixed with the TILX, GATX, and some other lease cars. This one has the repainted band. This one's a bit more fresh, as you can see. Updated all of the data on the sides, as you can see, so it's got all the brand new data added there. The new 2448 code there. The safety striping is a little bit beat up there, but the band, as you can see, is already starting to get weathered in. There's a lot of sulfur splatter on the tops there. And then on the opposite side, crazy amount of splatter, and you can see it's kind of washed away a little bit, but it's still prevalent. It just looks like they tried to maybe hose some of it off the safety appliances, like the railing, for example, but they left some of that splatter on the side. I thought that was a cool effect, but again, you can see the subtle variations in the stencils, where everything's been changed over time. New is added, and the old's left there or changed sometimes. I thought that was a really cool, really a cool effect on this one. Okay, moving that one out of the way. These next two are pretty much standard units, as I like to call them, where these don't really have any major changes to the data. They're just renumbered cars. That's pretty much the only thing I really did to them. Other than that, heavy grime fade for the weathering, sulfur splatter, a little bit more emphasis on the rust work on the round, that little hatch, the manway area there, the sulfur splatter, like I said. Added the reflective tape striping, new numbers both sides. This one has a little bit of graffiti. I don't have a lot of cars with graffiti. I wanted to kind of keep these more clean in that sense, but I do have a few that have some small tags like these, as you can see. But again, it's just for interest. It's a different looking car. I think it looks pretty cool. There's even a little bit on the end shield there, and then on the opposite side you can see it's pretty clean, but there's a lot of splatter again. You can see it's just all over the top of that car, where these things just get absolutely caked in sulfur spillage. It just splatters all over the place when they're loaded. But it's a really cool effect to model that, and that's super easy to do. You just use pretty much a flat brush like this, and you pick up paint, make a little yellow or green wash to replicate the sulfur, the dried sulfur, and then you just splatter it on the top of the tank body, and it's super simple. These two PPRX cars are done, so that's those guys. This last sulfur car I'm going to show for this video is a really cool one. This one has, again, some really cool features. This one is a repatched car, and they used a different font for the patchwork. That's custom done by Circus City Decals. He went in and made me a decal sheet. Sorry, this thing's covered in dust, guys. I should have probably prepared these models before I pulled them out. They've only been sitting for a couple days and they're already covered in dust. Jeez. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. But I needed to remove the dust so you could better see the subtle patch repair to the top, where they actually repainted the entire top portion of this car. I thought that was really cool. Around the hatch there, it's all still really dirty. They didn't repair that section. You can see they just only repaired the top, and then they repatched the sides. On the side as well, here you can see where they redid a lot of that data. They updated the data as well. They added the FRA IP SR number there. All that's custom done using custom-made decals, again by Circus City Graphics. He does really, really good work. He's really good about making car data, reporting mark data, and things like that. So he made this font, and then he made all these for me. Also a number of 2448 hazmat codes too. This one has the stencil covers, and again it has some really nice weathering. On the opposite side, pretty much the same thing. Some subtle differences in the patchwork again. I thought that was super cool, and I really wanted to try to model that. And this one just came out super awesome. It's hard to say I have favorites in this collection, just because I have so many cars at this point, and so many of them just look super, super cool. But This one is definitely one of my favorites for sure, if I can say that, I guess. I just love the way it came out. Adding these little details, I'm telling you, you do all the detail work, making the stencils right, doing subtle patch repairs, changing stuff on the car body, replicating things like that really enhances the overall look of any of these cars. It just does such a great job if you put the effort into it. So anyways, that's all the weathered Sulfur cars I have, but I got many more that I'm about to do, and I'll show you guys what I have in terms of cars to do towards the end of this video. So I said in the last video I was going to have some locomotives for you, and I kept on my promise there. This is actually a locomotive that's pretty much finished. I don't think I have to do anything else to it, but this was actually quite a bit of a cleanup project. This was sent to me by a friend, and originally he had sent it to me to get it to run again, because when I actually got it, it wasn't even running. It wasn't in running condition, so I had to completely strip the motor down, the trucks and everything, and clean everything up, re-lube it, and then I also had to replace some parts, but that's a whole other story I'd rather not get into. These older Atherns, they're real troublesome, right? A lot of these older run early RTR engines. But the paint schemes are cool, and this one is cool in particular because it's an ex-BC Rail Kennecott Copper unit, HLCX SD40's. This was built by someone else, not by me initially, but there's some features on it that I ended up changing. I redid the front pilot, I replaced some certain parts on it, touched up parts, touched up the weathering. Again, like I said, I had to clean the motor out, but you can see I redid the weathering on the trucks. On the front of the locomotive, I redid a number of little details, like on the front, for example, I redid the handrails. The front pilot has the ditch lights, the couple lift bars, MU cables, the hose. All that was re-added there. Everything on the nose, the cab, I did not do. This is fitted with LEDs. And then on the end there, I just, again, touched up the weathering, replaced some details where needed, and just touched up the weathering overall. I do have to replace a fuel filler cap. I'm actually glad I just saw that. Shoot. Like I said, these things are never actually complete, are they? Jeez. Anyways, this one is pretty much finished other than that little thing that I noticed. I can go back and repair that, though. But I'm super happy with how it came out. I got one more locomotive of his to do, and it's going to be an Ofox SD45 I'm going to start working on. And then I have a Bowser SD40-2 I got to do as well. I'm not doing commission work, by the way. This is actually in exchange for some cars I got, I think, off of them. Anyways, so yeah, this is what I had been working on, and I think it turned out super good. I'm pretty happy with it. I like my 6204, but 6206 is another unit I had thought about building myself, so it was actually pretty interesting being able to work on something like this and kind of add my signature touch to it. I honestly thought that was really cool. And you guys are gonna, of course, remember this one. It is finally finished. HLCX 6337. This has been in a number of my videos at this point in various stages of disassembly or nearing completion, really. It's finally all back together. It's got a decoder inside it. All the weathering is done. It's completely assembled. I'm super happy with how it came out, and I can go ahead now and show you guys some of the features of this locomotive. So, for one thing, this is an HLCX SD40R, one of the former Southern Pacific SD40 rebuilds, and it's in the really nice, classy Cornell red, as you can see. This is an Athearn RTR SD40, and this is from 1 or 2 runs back. This is not the latest run of SD40s, but it's relatively recent. It's the LED-equipped version. I think this was a former SP experimental scheme. They tried to do the SP daylight scheme on these, and it failed miserably. It was one of those. Anyways, with this locomotive, I had to completely redo the fuel tank, the trucks, everything above the deck. It had to be changed in one way or the other. Starting at the base of the locomotive, the trucks, the fuel tank. On the fuel tank itself, I had to completely remove the fuel sight glass and also modify the positioning of the little sight gauge there and the fuel cap. All that was different on the SP unit. All those pieces were removed or they were in different positions, so I had to completely fill in the little sight on the side of the tank on both sides, And then I did all the appropriate detailing. It's got the waste retention tank and all the appropriate piping that's prototypical. On the trucks, I modified the flexi coil trucks and added the exposed Timken bearings. Again, a common feature you see on a lot of these lease locomotives. And on the battery box doors, all that was stock. I added a full cab interior, so this has the seats, it has the control stand with the gauges, it has the speed recorder in there, the seats are on both sides. And on the sides of the locomotive, I had to do a little bit of just a lot of lettering removal, because there was a lot of paint I had to scrub off first, because I had to strip the whole thing down. So I prepped the entire car body for paint. On the front portion, on the nose here anyways, I had to remove the actual nose light from the nose and blank that over, and then relocate the nose light to the headlight position between the number boards, because the light was relocated on this locomotive when it was rebuilt in, I think, 2004 or 2002. Anyways, I had to do all that. That was a lot of work. And then I ended up modifying the class lights. I added all the appropriate front pilot details. I did the custom-made SP stand ditch lights with the receptacles. I did the custom SP drop grab iron, large SP plow with the grab irons there. Air hoses custom-made, MU cables, again, new couplers. These are KDs. And on the other side of this locomotive, pretty much the same process here. This has all the new side and end details. Upgraded the trucks again with the flexi coil, the earlier flexi coils, because they're easier to modify, and then they have the exposed bearings. Fuel tank modifications, again, you can see the sight glass has been removed and everything was relocated on the top of the tank there. This truck here on the conductor side has the speed recorder. You can see that cable runs right up there into the cab. All that is really nice. And then you can see I added the P3 horn. This has lift rings, grab irons are fully installed, all kinds of nice roof details, whip antenna, all the appropriate grab irons are installed. And then on the rear portion, or the rear hood of this locomotive, you can see I added all the appropriate details like the MU cables, the custom made coupler lift bar. I did the custom MU receptacles with the added jumper cable, the air hose, new coupler. I modified the ends by removing the number boards and the classification lights, so that's all completely flat sheet metal. And then you can see I modified, rather heavily modified, the former SP light package, the way it was redone on the rebuild. I modeled that. It looks really nice with the white trim grab irons, I really gotta say. In terms of weathering, I didn't try to go too crazy. I wanted to keep this thing relatively clean, but it's currently in service on the WSOR, and the thing's getting really beat up, unfortunately. But I tried to kind of backdate this locomotive, so it's modeled maybe circa 2015, 2016, when it was still in relatively good shape. Now it's getting really badly chipped up, but you can see the detailing is just exquisite. The paint came out really good. The paintwork on this thing was really hard, trying to match that Cornell red. I ended up using 2 different shades of acrylic paint and a little bit of flow quill paint mixed together to try to make that accurate HLCX Cornell red. All the decals are at ground level. You can see the really nice dusty trucks with all that road grime. There's lots of nice fine streaking on the sides of the locomotive. I really tried to keep the weathering relatively subtle, but where it needed to be. You can see the control stand in there inside the cab. I thought that's super cool. And then you can see all the nice fuel tank weathering. Lots of grease on the sill there. All the nice detailing on the rear truck as well. And then darkened the grills. And you can see all the hood doors. There's a lot of grease running in and out of those door seams there. That's super nice. Lots of dust and grime coming down from those air filters. It's a common area that collects a lot of grime, and then it collects on the walkways there. On the top, you can see on the nose there's a lot of weathering. There's some paint chipping just starting on the top of the cab. You can see all that's accenting the nice detailing. You got a little bit of exhaust soot. I added all the roof vents. I replaced 2 of the fans just like the prototype, and then painted those accordingly. And you can see there's a lot of, again, the paint chipping just starting. It's a lot worse now, of course, if you guys look up photos of this thing now. But again, the rear detailing just came out super nice. These end handrails were fun because to get the appropriate stanchion spacing, I had to cut all the stock rail pieces off, leaving only the stanchions, and then I added my own custom-made railings with phosphor bronze wire. So that was fun doing all that, but it had to be done. Again, you can see the all the end detailing has been completely removed, and the lettering, or rather the numbers, have just been simply stenciled right over the sheet metal, kind of at the top there. On the opposite side, you can see all the nice weathering again, all the nice dust and grime effects on the fuel tank, a little bit of fluid spillage down the side there, and then inside the cab you can see all that nice detailing. You can see the conductor seat, 6337 number on the side of the cab, looks super nice, and then all the nice grime work on the truck. Just a super nice locomotive, and I'm really happy with how it came out. It was a bit of an endurance though, because it was a lot of work, and I totally did just bump that antenna, and that's annoying. These whip antennas, they never stay in the exact position. There we go. So, you know, it's a lot of time to make these locomotives, especially now, but I do want to keep on trucking with making some locomotives again, because I just had a hell of a lot of fun making this. And I want to go ahead and bring in another locomotive that I'm going to be working on, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a teaser. This guy here is around the corner in terms of being finished. It's getting really, really close. I'm not going to say too much about it, but you guys can obviously tell what it is. The old big green SD40's. True HLCX lease locomotive right here. So all you BN modelers out there, eat your heart out. This is going to be hopefully done in the next couple of videos. Maybe next month it might be completed. We'll see what we get done. But so far the build's gone really well. It's completely rebuilt, custom painted. But we'll talk all about that in the video coming up. I actually have a build video on this locomotive, so you guys can stay tuned for that. Other than that, I will not say too much else because I don't want to spoil the fun. While we're in here too, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys my storage shelf is getting quite a bit of use. I still got some OVR cars in here. I got some new tank cars that came in. This one came in the other day, and then I ordered these new LPG cars. I got these super cheap from a friend. I think it was like 15 bucks a piece for brand new. The Greenbrier LPG, so I got two different numbers on those. And then, like I said, OVR guns, and then I got a couple Pro Sulfur tank cars I got to work on. So these are all ones that I'm going to have to go through. Some of these I am selling off to some friends. And then the rest I'm going to be re-lettering and repatching slowly and incorporating them into my Sulfur train, hopefully. So that's all stuff that's going to be coming up soon. So now onto the layout, and I'm filming this on Memorial Day weekend here, so it's actually Monday. I go back to work tomorrow, Tuesday. But in terms of progress, I've made a little bit more out here. I did the final coat of glue on the ballast, and unfortunately it did reveal some issues. Where some of the ballast sank. The issues with Woodland Scenic's ballast are starting to become more and more prevalent as I use it on this model railroad, and in hindsight I honestly wish I never used Woodland Scenic's ballast because it just caused me so many issues. I'm getting more cracking, meaning that in parts the ballast didn't properly saturate. So from now on what I'm going to have to try to do is go back in again, and I'm going to have to resaturate the ballast using an alcohol wet water mix to try to really saturate this, and then just layer on some other glue. And if that doesn't work, then I'm just going to have to reballast parts, I guess, with new ballast. I'm going to probably be looking at stuff like Arizona rock and mineral material from now on, if I can find a blend that will match. But honestly, a lot of their rock mixes look way better than even what I've done out here. I've tried to incorporate multiple tones and blends to represent what's really there, but you know, it only goes so far, and I'm still having issues with this material. So in the future, I think I'm just going to ditch Woodland Scenic's products altogether in terms of ballast. They still make good products, but I'm not happy with their ballast. I'm just annoyed with it, to be honest. So I'm still having issues. That's where I'm at right now. Where I'm at in terms of scenery, I need to go ahead and start working on this area here, and that's going to involve me going in and repainting some of this area here, dark brown, then laying in static grass, then laying in some shrubbery and bushes just like I've done along here. So that's going to go all the way around like this. So I'll have bushes all along this area here, right? And they'll all blend in that whole scene there. Over here, not too much. It's exactly like how I left it the last time. I did finish all my utility poles, and if we come under the layout, you can see I got all these guys finished. I had to build one or two more. So these are waiting to get installed. And I got some other holes and detail parts over here that I'm going to install in certain other places. The parking lot turned out really good. This whole area, honestly, came out super well. I did all the detailing and all the ballasting, and we talked about the lower and taller mainline height compared to the sidetrack height. All this tree and shrubbery work came out really nice. I recently went in and did another layer of static grass, but more of like a dead grass layer to this. If we look at that, and that was done with the 7mm Woodland Scenic static grass. I also left these interesting gas marker signs right there. So I made those from scratch. And that's kind of where I'm at there. So I was doing all that static grass with the new static grass, and I recently got one of the knock static grass guns. One of these guys. I got this actually from a dude in Cleveland, brand new, for 60 bucks. Another one of those great eBay deals. So that's where I'm at with the layout. Honestly, not a lot of progress. I had to take a lot of breaks because I've been honestly more focused on indoor projects right now and what I've been wanting to do on the workbench. So I've kind of been taking a break out here, but I'll come back out to it at some point in the next couple of weeks, and I'll start working on laying in the static grass so I can at least finish this module up, because we're so close. It's just that one scene. I want to just wrap it up. And then once I get all that done, then I'm going to have to backtrack again and start correcting some more issues, mainly with ballast. And I really want to try to nail this down for like one last time. I don't want to keep having to, you know, screw around with this, but I'm going to try to fix that one more time and go from there. But you can see, even in this section here, poorly saturated ballast caused me some problems there, so I got some cracking I got to rectify. But everything else in this section, I mean, it all dried up pretty well. It all saturated super well, except in certain little random areas. But it goes to show you, you really got to be thorough when you use any kind of ballast products. It's got to be really well saturated. And I definitely learned my lesson here, because it's caused me a lot of problems, and even more so obviously in this whole area here. I mean, this entire section here, I could pretty much just lift all this ballast out. It's just completely cracked, and it has not held up well. So, you know, again, that's why you got to be really careful. So I'm going to have to tear a lot of this ballast out and reballast a lot of this too, which is, you know, even more work. And then of course going all the way down here, numerous spots I got to repair. This is a real bad one here. You can see all that. That's fun. So I have to redo that. But anyways, that's really where I'm at with the scenery. We're not done yet, but we're getting there, and I'm still super satisfied with the progress, and it's still getting to an exciting point where we're really starting to kind of come to the conclusion of the building of the layout, and then it's just fun detailing and operations from there on. Still working on programming a decoder. You can see I got the 6337 out here already. That's being programmed right now. Other than that, guys, it's going to pretty much wrap this video up. Stay tuned for more in the future. I got some more videos coming up. Subscribe here on YouTube for more. Follow my work on Facebook and Instagram. My Facebook is Daniel Arnold. My Instagram page is Dan E. Dankinson, all lowercase, and you guys can follow me there for more work. And, of course, subscribe here on YouTube for more. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.